Rapid testing is one of the province's strategies to tackle COVID in schools. But even as more schools go into outbreak, the health unit says decisions have yet to be made around how that'll work locally. Windsor residents are dealing with an invasion of rats. Some blame neighbors for the issue. One councillor is calling for accountability. A live look at our city there. Strange day with gray conditions, muggy, but also chilly at times as well. We also got a bit of drizzle in there as well. Colette Kennedy will be here later on in the program with a full look at your forecast. Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Thanks for watching. Some parents would like to see more testing for COVID-19 in Windsor-Essex schools. Yesterday, the province did announce a new program to do tests in some schools in the province. But the acting medical officer of health has a more nuanced approach when it comes to testing or not testing. And it's something our Jacob Barker has been looking into today, and he joins me now live. Jacob, what did the medical officer of health have to say about this?
Well, Kat, Dr. Shankar Toure says that while he hasn't made any firm decisions about the provincial plan, he is considering all options when it comes to managing COVID-19. This is in response to a provincial plan to offer asymptomatic rapid testing in some high-risk schools, something the Chief Medical Health Officer in the province, Kieran Moore, called another tool in the chest when it comes to curbing school-related cases. But Nessa Toure says that rapid antigen testing only plays a limited role and that it would not be the preferred option in managing many school outbreaks.
When you screen people who don't have symptoms, you're likely many times to have people test positive who in fact don't have COVID. And that can be a significant problem from a public health point of view. So just to encapsulate my comments, we will consider all the options that are potentially available to manage COVID-19, and that would include testing in the appropriate circumstances. But we've not made any firm decisions regarding school testing, and we definitely have to do that in cooperation with our school board colleagues.
And Jacob, what about parents? What do they want to see around testing in schools?
Well, one parent I spoke with would very much like to see it. Today, a third school was shut down in Windsor-Essex County due to an outbreak of COVID-19. Louise Charon Elementary School was shut down, and the French School Board says that there are 8 cases at the school. The parent that I spoke with, who has a son at the school, says that taking her kindergarten-aged son to the Windsor Regional Hospital facility was a stressful experience, one that she worried could increase the risk of exposing him to COVID-19. She says she would feel a lot better if there was testing in the schools.
So we're happy that the results came back negative. We feel relieved. But obviously, with a quick test, I think that the whole school could have been tested on Monday morning, and then we would have a clearer idea of where we stand at the moment.
Now, the outbreak at Louise Charon is one of 3 that has shut down schools in Windsor-Essex County since the year began, and hundreds of students have been told to stay home due to exposure to COVID-19.
Thanks for this, Jacob. The CBC's Jacob Barker live tonight. An update now on the COVID-19 situation on Walpole Island First Nation. Programs in schools are reopening tomorrow after a spike in COVID cases saw them close a week and a half ago. Officials say they did so because of how stretched thin the health center has been, and remind the community that active cases can skyrocket if not contained. There are currently 14 active cases in the community, a decline from 28 a week ago. A Windsor City Councillor wants to see a bylaw enacted that would force you to get rid of any rats on your property. Fabio Costante says he's been getting calls from homeowners who are fed up with rats invading their properties from neighboring yards. He doesn't want them scurrying away from the problem. Dale Molnar has more.
They come straight away from there, run up. If I'm here, they kind of come this way, go that way, and if I do make a noise, a lot of noise, they kind of run back.
Shipper Dosh describes how rats from her neighbor's yard come running into her yard, and they're bold.
But they are always crossing my patio at the back. all the time.
This is a little bit more recent.
Rick Hobbs points out the rat trails in his backyard. He says they come from elsewhere. He has been catching them with traps.
Okay, I'm going to set it off. And I'm afraid I'm a chicken. During the daylight, I see them. One night I sat for 1 hour, seen 4 of them.
One actually ran between his wife's legs while they were sitting in the backyard, so he has complained to Fabio Costante about the problem. Costante has asked administration to report back to council with a plan on how to develop a bylaw that would force homeowners to get rid of any rats living on their property.
If your neighbor has burrows and you can safely conclude that at least some of the rats are coming from the neighboring property, you would, presumably call 311. They'd have a bylaw officer come inspect the area. If they conclude that there's rat holes and the rats may be coming from there, they would issue an order that the property owner either engage in the city program or a third-party private program to take care of the issue. It gives the city a bit more teeth to enforce, and if that property owner doesn't engage in some form of rat abatement program, there could also be perhaps a penalty regime associated with the bylaw for those that are non-compliant.
The bylaw can't come soon enough for Hobbs.
Oh, I think that's the best idea since sliced bread. They should have been on this years ago.
I think that is a very timely thing to do because for 13 years I haven't had any solution to the rat problem.
This Forest Glade resident hasn't had the problem, but agrees the bylaw is needed.
Definitely. That's probably a big issue with the whole city, no matter where you are in the city, that needs to be attended to. It needs fixing.
Administration still needs to submit a report to council. Rick Hobbs will be among the first to report his problem to the city if the bylaw is enacted.
We haven't had a tomato all summer. They walk right through the wire. Right, so what do you do for that? I mean, that's bizarre, isn't it?
Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
2 individuals were honored today by Windsor Fire for their heroism with Citizen Citation Awards. The first, Dave Murdoch.
Well, Dave, on behalf of Windsor Fire and Rescue Services, thank you for your selfless dedication and your heroic acts, and we want to recognize your actions that day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Murdoch helped save the life of a person trapped in a smoke-filled elevator during the Westcourt Place fire in 2019. An elevator technician, he helped bring the person to safety and saved their life. The fire chief says it's not often people from the community have such a major impact on response. The Westcourt fire displaced more than 200 residents. Fire officials from that day are grateful to Murdoch for what he did.
In a high-rise situations, a lot can happen. There's a lot of factors that makes it very unique and dangerous on our part to deal with, and we train for it. And here's an individual just coming to help with an elevator, and he stepped up. So, he was very heroic. He's very humble. Didn't want to attend today. And thankfully he did. And it was pretty wild.
The other recipient, a man who helped rescue 2 lives from an apartment fire at Prufer Court in July. He lives in Texas, but was visiting his mom, who manages the building. Here's what he remembers from that day.
I just ran up there and just did what I had to do, and then wanted to go back to bed. That's it. I'm simple, man.
When did you realize somebody was in trouble?
When I kicked the door in, I started screaming out. And I heard this gal talking, so come on, just grab her and get her out. Then I was covered in smoke, so I went to go get a rag to throw a rag over my face. I'd go back in and get the dude that was in there.
Did you know the people that were living in that
No.
apartment? So why go in there?
Who cares? Go help them. I don't care if it was a dog. I'm going to do the same thing.
The way that Mr. Johnson reacted was absolutely perfect. He couldn't have done anything more. He reacted to the alarms. He went to the fire floor. He kicked open the door. He rescued one individual that was wandering around aimlessly, not knowing what was going on, in shock. He went into the fire room where the fully involved fire was, pulled him out of bed onto the floor, dragged him into the hallway where he was overcome by the smoke and heat, shut the bedroom door, shut the apartment door when he left, which is all the right things to do, came down to my engine when we arrived and came directly to me to give me every single detail. There's not many people like him. He's he's extremely modest. I don't know if he fully, because to him it's natural. It's just something that he does, and that's not like everybody. That's very rare to get someone like him. He has no fear. And that was just how you're supposed to react in his eyes. He saved 2 people. He should be one of us. I mean, really, that's what we do. That's what we get paid for.
Some good news for Stellantis workers in Ontario. The company has decided to keep operations in Windsor and Brampton running until at least the end of the month. The plants have been plagued by shutdowns over the past year due to a microchip shortage. The Windsor assembly plant went back into operation at the beginning of last week. A company spokesperson tells CBC News that barring any unforeseen circumstances, the company plans on keeping the plant running at least until the end of the month. This is also good news for feeder plants that supply parts to Stellantis. An analyst who keeps track of Windsor's employment rate says the shutdowns have contributed to a 10.6% unemployment rate in the Windsor area. Windsor Assembly has only operated for 13.5 weeks this year. Ontario's top public health doctor says medical exemptions from COVID-19 vaccine requirements should be extremely rare. Yet among Premier Doug Ford's own MPPs, 2 have exemptions, and that's prompting questions at the legislature. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the story.
11 million people in this province have rolled up their sleeves for a shot of a COVID-19 vaccine. To get a medical exemption to the vaccines, Ontario's top public health doctor says there are only 2 legitimate reasons, and both conditions are quite rare. Severe allergic reactions to the vaccines are seen in 1 in every 100,000 people, and there's a risk of heart inflammation in up to 5 in every 100,000 people.
And so roughly, if you put those calculations together, we should be seeing medical exemptions at the risk of around 1 to 5 per 100,000.
Among Doug Ford's 70-member PC caucus, 2 have been exempted. Opposition MPPs wonder what's going on.
That's peculiar. That's odd.
It's curious. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, let's put it that way.
In question period, the New Democrats pressed the issue.
Can the Premier help explain the statistical anomaly in his own caucus?
I find it pretty rich when the leader of the NDP should recognize that considering her own position evolves day to day depending on which way the wind blows.
The Conservative MPPs who've been granted the exemptions are Christina Mitas, who represents Scarborough Centre, and Lindsay Park from the riding of Durham. PC officials say the exemptions were provided by medical professionals.
We were very transparent, Mr. Speaker, on the people that had a medical exemption. We don't get involved in people's personal medical records.
It speaks to the lack of honesty, perhaps, the lack of leadership that this Premier is showing in terms of verification of exemptions.
The Chief Medical Health Officer says vaccine exemptions are showing up among the general public more often than necessary. He says doctors and nurse practitioners have been told they should only be granted in very limited circumstances. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
We have new information today from millions of leaked files known as the Pandora Papers, documents that open a window into the legal loopholes the wealthy use to shelter their cash from taxes. They were revealed by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which includes the CBC. Among the names in the documents, Canadian figure skating hero Elvis Stojko. Jonathan Gatehouse has the details.
Elvis Stojko earned a reputation for leaving it all on the ice, winning 3 world championships, a pair of Olympic silver medals, and making Canadians proud. After his competitive career ended in the early 2000s, Stojko retired to Mexico, and some of his Canadian assets left too, destined for an offshore trust in Belize. Leaked documents detail how Stojko established the Quad Trust in 2007, naming it after his signature jump, transferring ownership of a life insurance policy and investment account worth up to $6.5 million, all with the help of Skate Canada, an organization that receives millions in government funds each year. Stojko's then lawyer stressed the need for secrecy, demanding trust records be kept in complete discretion and confidence, not open to any inspection whatsoever. There's no evidence of any wrongdoing by Stoico, and Belize's lack of transparency could have been a positive, says this tax expert.
You are going to be able to protect your assets from Canadian family law, from litigation against you in Canada that may or may not be deserved, people just trying to shake the money tree.
Stoico, who returned home to Canada a decade ago, declined an interview, but he did answer written questions, telling CBC News he was only vaguely aware of the arrangement. When my longtime lawyer recommended that I set up a trust, I did not question his advice. Anthony Malcolm, his late Montreal lawyer, was a tax haven specialist. Stoico describes him as a second father, a comfort as he grappled with the end of his Olympic gold dreams. At that point, I was at my lowest, Stoico wrote. Mr. Malcolm looked after all financial matters, since it was a point of pain for me, since it was attached to my skating failure. But some questions remain. Skate Canada transferred the assets from its own Skaters Trust Fund to Belize. Yet the transaction doesn't appear to have been accounted for in financial statements filed with the Canada Revenue Agency. The organization and its former CEO, William Thompson, declined interviews, Thompson saying only that he was obliged to do what Stoico asked, while the current leadership of Skate Canada maintain they have nothing valuable to add. Jonathan Gatehouse, CBC News, Toronto.
A live look at the bridge there and the riverfront. Just another gloomy, cloudy day today, and we're going to see how long that's here to stay. And I think we got some showers ahead tomorrow as well. But Colette Kennedy will be here right after the break with a full, close look at the weather forecast. Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, I honestly can't make sense of this weather because earlier today I was working on a story and we were outside and I felt like I was getting overheated. And then I went for a walk and then I was cold. And I'm like, it's windy, it's drizzly, and yet it's muggy.
Yeah, and it is all those things. Hey, it's driving me crazy too because I'm trying to work with this forecast with this air that is very, very moist, and then we get into some of that mist and fog, and it hangs in a little longer, and the sun is beaming down, I promise you, from above on that cloud deck. It's trying to break through, and then some areas it is succeeding, in other areas it's not. But that's kind of the way it is. It does feel when it's a bit wet, it feels damp and has that coolness, but we have quite a lot of humidity that we're talking about. And it's going to feel more on that moist, sticky side as we look into Thursday. For now, it's 19 degrees. Can I just mention that it's over 32 degrees in Estevan, Saskatchewan right now? That's the hot spot in the country. So we've got mild temperatures, but not quite what's happening in the prairies with those record-setting readings that they're getting into. We do have a humidex, though, puts us in the mid-20s, the stickiness that we have with the higher dew points. Some of that low cloud, yes, redevelopment tonight where we're going to get into some fog again. See this circulation right here? That counterclockwise circulation. So that's a cutoff low. It's an area of low pressure. It's kind of cut off with the ridge over top of it's having trouble moving. It's going to get moving, and once it does, there's actually going to be somewhat of an impact on us. So I'm actually seeing most of tomorrow dry. It's late into the evening hours that I anticipate we'll get into showers. I put a slight risk in earlier than that. And then into Friday morning, but Friday's going to be one of those kind of mixed days. Here's Friday afternoon, still some rain showers just push through and towards Sarnia, but probably some sunny breaks will show up in there as well, so you get a little bit of everything. Just know there'll be some wet conditions. Overnight tonight, a look at those readings and what we have for you here. 16 degrees for that low, and there we go tomorrow. But check out those humidex values, okay? That 35, kind of more towards Sarnia, where I anticipate more sun than we're going to be seeing. We should get some breaks, but a few showers showing up, again, late. So Bloomington, don't worry too much about that. Friday, we see some of those off and on, sunny breaks. Saturday looks like it is going to be a wet day into the holiday weekend, but looking good after that. And I look at these temperatures. I mean, these overnight lows are closer to where our seasonal daytime highs should be, if you follow me on that, folks.
Well, and that feeling like 31 tomorrow, like it's October.
I know.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, what date is it again in October?
I know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the Saskatchewan temperature, I'm like, how is this happening? But thank you so much for this, Colette.
You're welcome, Katerina.
When we come back, we've got a story to get you right into that October Halloween spirit. Stay with us. It's the time of year when people who've been growing giant gourds get to show them off with some friendly competition. In the Maritimes, a 1,956-pound behemoth named Howard set a new record there, just 3 pounds off the all-time Canadian record. And on the other side of the country, a BC grower has come away with the win for his Papa Bear pumpkin. As Benit Brach explains, one thing all the growers agree on is that it's a labor of love.
Huge round of applause. And with that photo finish, a record has been set for BC's heaviest pumpkin, a feat for Richmond's David Chan that has been 12 years in the making.
This is the most excited I've ever been, so winning is great.
Chan and his jumbo gourds were part of the annual Giant Pumpkin Weigh-Off. His precious plant family, named Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear, were grown outside and then later covered with a temporary greenhouse.
They really love the heat, so that's probably one reason why it got so big.
Big is an understatement. Papa Bear, winner of the show, came in at just over 1,900 pounds and is the new record holder in the province. It's no easy task. Taking care of the family, there's lots of nurturing.
I've been watering them 6 times a day, or a total of 200 gallons of water per plant.
Chan got his first seeds 40 years ago from a giant pumpkin farmer on the other end of the country.
I wrote a letter to Howardale, Nova Scotia, and I got a reply in 1 week.
Dill sent over some seeds called Atlantic Giants, and ever since, it's been a hobby for Chan. At his last competition, Chan's pumpkin fell a few hundred pounds light, but this year, Chan's even earned an esteemed pumpkin champion jacket for growing the 3 pumpkins weighing over 4,000 pounds in total.
I think this is the first time I've really been excited about growing pumpkins.
Enthusiastic spectators watched in awe.
I like to see each pumpkin's different. There are so many shapes and big, and I like the colors on them.
And what's done with these after the weigh-in? This one is being donated to Ronald McDonald House. Some are gifted or even fed to farm animals. And for BC's champion...
Well, it's like anybody else. We just carve them up and put them on the driveway.
Until next year, where Chan will yet again plant another gargantuan gourd. Benit Brach, CBC News, Langley.
That is incredible. We've heard that music soothes the savage beast, and we can now confirm that it soothes beasts that aren't so savage too. Members of the Toronto Symphony Orchestra performed at the zoo on Tuesday before a captive audience of giraffes. These musicians will return for a concert that will be filmed. They will play music inspired by the sounds of animals. The finished product will be sent to schools late next month. This digital concert is the product of a partnership between the orchestra and the zoo, and the goal is to help students connect with nature. He's got places to go and people to see, and what better way than on public transit?
He waits out of the lines, just like the other passengers, and after everyone gets out, he gets in the train and he has a special place.
Boji is a regular commuter on public transit in Istanbul, Europe's largest city, including ferries where he's a familiar figure and happy to pose for pictures. A tracker on his collar shows Boji travels up to 30 kilometers a day, including on buses and subway trains. Officials say the street dog seems to have a purpose and knows where he is going. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For news anytime, you can check out our website, cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Rick Mercer Report is up next. Have a great night.